So thank you to you both for being here. This is going to be a fun conversation. Unless anyone here has been under a rock for the last year, you've probably read a little bit and heard a little bit about what these two gentlemen are doing. I hesitate to say they need no introduction, so I will give them a moment just to introduce themselves before we dive into the questions.
First of all, I want to say thank you to North Coast for having us, and thank you to everybody for attending. It's a terrific organization, and I'm proud to be an investor, and it's great to see so many people here interested in trying to build our tech and startup ecosystem. That's something that we talk about every day. And I'm John Pinney, I'm the managing partner of Cormac Jackson & Krantz, and I'm really good at stirring up a storm of controversy, and I think putting Bernie and I up here together with the media in the room is a real problem. So that was the first mistake you made, so we'll try to have a filter, which usually doesn't happen. But welcome, and thanks for listening.
I would echo that. I think really cool what you guys are doing.
Yeah.
Really amazing to see this happening in Northeast Ohio. It's really, really amazing. So congrats to you and Clay for putting this together. My name is Moreno. Talk about Blockland, I'm sure at some point, but if you're the shit stir, is that the organizer?
Yeah, apparently, yeah. So.
Terrific. So we'll dive in. So many of you have heard of Blockland. It's been a year, thousands of volunteers, some of the highest corporate volunteers I've seen, a huge event. Can you just take 2 minutes and tell people what Blockland is and what it's going to be?
Yeah, the easiest way to understand Blockland is it's like watching Breaking Bad and just coming into the wrong season, and all of a sudden you're like, why is there a teacher selling meth? So the easiest way to think about Blockland is this. It really comes from my experience, which may answer some of your other questions. I have 21 dealerships in 4 different states. And 3 years ago, I made the decision that technology was going to disintermediate my business. Car dealerships were going to be replaced by technology, and I would be poor again. And that was very unappealing to me. So I started selling my car dealerships. And as I thought about building technology companies, I like what the gentleman from Remesh just said, you put together your team, right? And then put together my team, they all said to me, well, where do you want to do this? And I'm thinking, like, oh, I really like going to North Olmsted. I live in Westlake, and Ohio City wouldn't be so bad. No, but I should be a corporate citizen, go downtown. And as I'm having these conversations, they all look at me and go, no, we're thinking like Boston, Miami, Austin, Denver, not Cleveland. And that's really where Blockland was born. The idea was, if here's this really smart group of people telling an entrepreneur that they shouldn't make a technology investment in Cleveland, what would it take for the opposite to happen really, really quickly? So 2 or 3 years from now, those smart people would say, well, we got to go to Cleveland because we have this, 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 and that. And so that's where we created the Blockland effort. And the goal is to make Cleveland one of the top 5 most important cities in technology in the country. Just that.
Terrific. So earlier in 2018, I was one of the 300 or so people who was packed into the City Club.
Sorry about that.
For your lunch. It was a good chicken lunch. I enjoyed it. For your much intriguing, very provocative talk. It was jam-packed with data, with insights, with comparisons of what's going on in other cities. And I think you didn't hesitate to point to areas that we just need to do better. Yeah. So understanding that was a lot of research over an hour, can you give us the Reader's Digest of what people should take away if they were not in the room that day?
Yeah, sure. Thanks for attending, first of all. So it started in late 2017. I was asked by Smart Business Magazine to write a guest column about the Renaissance in Cleveland. And actually, that was a narrative that I was using in many speeches I've done, both before and after the RNC. And so I actually want to put some metrics and science behind it. So we started doing research and particularly looking at our job growth, our GDP growth, our population issues. And unfortunately, the data did not support the Renaissance narrative. And so we went back and tried to find more positive data, both the Smart Business team and then our team. And it just didn't exist as far as we could see it at that point. So I decided to write a 1-page honest article in which I challenged the narrative, which was somewhat contrary to what I had been saying around town. And I mean, you would think that I cure cancer in Cleveland. my email, everything blew up. It kind of went viral, and so from there, I wrote a second article with more data. Again, 1 page, and it really stirred up a controversy. And then I was asked by the City Club to speak. And basically, the conclusions that I reached are this, and they're subject to challenge. And if you have opinions, I'm sure you'll let me know, just like the 3,000 people who email me. So here's my conclusions. Here they are. It's one is that we have an economic development system that needs to be reevaluated. First and foremost, it's a complex system with hundreds, if not 1,000 plus organizations that are doing redundant things that could be more efficient, could be more effective. And in order to do that, you really need to understand the system, you need to map the system, and then you need to apply some metrics to the system to evaluate performance. And then a real basic concept is for Northeast Ohio, or at least for Cleveland, to have a plan. Columbus has a plan called Columbus 2020, and I talk about it at length because anytime I talk about Columbus, I get Clevelanders pissed off, which is my goal. I want to motivate people in Cleveland to realize that we're really not winning the war, if you will, or the battle between the 2 other cities in our market. We're doing good things, but we could always do better. So we need a plan. And for better or worse, after my speech, Bernie and I are now involved in one of the many, I guess, byproducts of the speech to try to fix some of these issues. And so I think people are past the controversy, and we're now heading them towards the hard work phase, which is developing a solution. So we're part of one of the many initiatives, and we're trying to develop a plan. That's something that's taking place right now. There's a number of other initiatives, but the final conclusion that I reached, and probably the most important thing I can tell you is this, is we have to figure out a solution to our population loss and our talent issues. I'll just give you one metric. If this doesn't tell you the full story, nothing will. So we're sitting in Cuyahoga County, right? Since 2000, Cuyahoga County has lost 9.7% of its population. That's not earth-shattering, right? Why is that controversial? Everybody's known about the brain drain and all these things, but that is so staggering compared to a completely opposite metric out of Franklin County and Columbus. We can't fill open jobs. We don't have enough entrepreneurs and innovators here, and we need to do a better job of reversing that trend. And that requires a concerted, coordinated effort across a whole series of very, what I'll call is not coordinated economic development entities. And I'm trying to put it nicely, but once those organizations can get aligned and create a system that's functioning like other markets, and I'll point to Philadelphia 15 years ago, got coordinated, and look where they're at now, one of the fastest growing cities in the country. Look at where Austin, Nashville, Indianapolis, these other markets have figured it out. So I think the system needs to be evaluated and mapped. You need leadership to emerge to really study it. And the good news is, despite all the controversy, with Bernie's help and a lot of other people's help who's in this room, we're evaluating it, and we're all volunteers, despite what you may think. Bernie's not running for Senate or governor, and I can assure you I'm not running for anything. So yeah, exactly. So we're here to try to help. We're civic-minded and have always been, and it's a lot of effort, and we're working to do everything we can because I think both of us firmly believe that Northeast Ohio and Cleveland in general, it could explode. It is a sleeping giant that just needs to have a tweaked system and some leaders to emerge. And we're seeing that. A lot of it is thanks to Blockland, what Bernie has created. The model is, in my opinion, the prototype for changing the narrative about Cleveland and for really making things happen. There are 10 nodes. Each node has countless volunteers. It's a completely inclusive and open system. Anyone who will call or email either of us, what do we say? You're in, sign up. You make eye contact with Bernie, you're in. So the system is designed to create an entire volunteer movement, and it's been really effective. So
excellent. So Bernie, as part of this process, you've been to blockchain conferences on the coast. You've been to the Blockchain Institute in Toronto, Tel Aviv. What have you seen and heard in other parts of the world that we need to hear here to better orient ourselves to be successful?
Yeah, thank you for asking. And just to clarify, because this is a question I get all the time, Blockland is not about blockchain only. Quite the opposite. Blockland is about bringing all types of technology to Cleveland. Blockchain is just a very simple underlying technology that is a small piece of the big technology solution. So just get that out of the way. One of the things that I think we have to our advantage is that if the turn of the century 100 years ago, people kind of migrated into communities based on ethnic groups, like my family moved to South Florida because that's where all South Americans go to get sorted, right? And so you got these communities that kind of have pockets. I think today with younger people, they move to communities that are tech-oriented, and they want to be around people who are like them. So you've seen that in Toronto. A lad took me on a trip, oh, he left. A lad took me on a trip to Tel Aviv. I mean, it's unbelievable what's going on over there. The vibrancy of the technology community is, and by the way, virtually completely driven by women, which is really cool to see. And so for Cleveland, when we have an opportunity, we're right next to Toronto. It's a quick little hop. And we have this incredible connection to Tel Aviv. Right? So to be able to make those connections, make that happen, is really, really important.
Great. One of the outgrowths of the Blockland conversation, I think, is related to what we heard from the TechStars assessment last year, which was that one of the biggest problems we have in Northeast Ohio is that entrepreneurial efforts are geographically dispersed. There just is not enough focus. There's not enough density in order for magic to happen. And John, you've been part of an effort to build an innovation hub in downtown Cleveland. It's something that we've expressed our intent to be part of. A lot of startups have as well. And the idea is identifying a group of people, corporate. I'm answering your question now.
Sure.
Let me ask the question of you.
Keep going.
Which is, what should we know about an innovation hub, and how does that fit in for what we're doing here?
Sure. So I have the pleasure of co-chairing one of the nodes, the place node, with Teresa Metcalf Beasley. And our job is to basically, as Bernie puts it, to build the world's largest innovation campus. You know, no pressure. But we set out, truthfully, to try to solve what you just outlined, which is the system, our ecosystem is somewhat fragmented. And we were looking for ways to really kickstart and to create a true ecosystem in a very, very quick fashion. Because we just don't have a lot of time. We feel like we're falling behind. So there's a sense of urgency in everything we're doing. And so we looked at the system, and we do. We have startups all over the place. We have funders all over the place. And there's not really a home or a place for everybody to come and to create collisions and to innovate together and to have one place where everybody can go and it's a one-stop shop for an entrepreneur, for an innovator, for a startup. And so we set out, formed the Place Node. We have about 90 plus members now. A lot of terrific volunteers have worked really hard on it. We evaluated 12 or 13 different sites. We settled on one, we've zeroed in, and we're actively negotiating. And I'll give you a background of what we've done. First of all, we built an overall schematic and program of what we want in the facility. We actually retained Vocon, the world's greatest architecture firm right here in Cleveland. They've been incredible. We designed a prototype. We presented it to the developer and the owner of the particular property. We have done a tremendous amount of research about best practices and other facilities around the world. A team of us, thanks to Bernie and his generosity, flew to 1871 in Chicago to see that. The one thing I'll tell you about 1871, what they have done with that facility is, frankly, it's more about the marketing behind it. They have used 1871 to their advantage, and it's really impressive. It almost has a lure to it that it's a spectacular facility, and it was so built up in our heads. When we walked in, we were all like, yeah, I mean, we can beat this. And I mean, the truth is that the programming behind 1871 has been really impressive. And so right now, we are, all of us as volunteers, we're working literally every day, negotiating what I'll call as a term sheet. We are trying to finalize a global structure of a very complex, multi-million dollar project. It goes to show you the power of volunteerism, and I'm in a very unusual circumstance. It's the first time in the history of my career where I am the light and Bernie is the heavy. So he's the tough negotiator, and I'm actually the one trying to find middle ground. And so it's been a great process. Do you want to add to it?
No, I think we're getting really, really close. It's almost as hard to sell Eddie Taylor Mercedes.
Yeah.
Someday.
Yeah. And we're asking a lot. I mean, it's a really complex transaction, and one of the challenges is it's a huge, huge project, and we don't want to make mistakes and not recognize it. It's just not if you build it, they will come. Yeah. We just don't, frankly, have enough startups in the market. We don't have a deep, big enough ecosystem yet to fill a major facility like this. So we have to evaluate, one, how do we fill it with what we have? And then two, how do we grow the pot and attract out-of-town innovators, startups, funds? And so that's a complex equation. So we have to phase it right, we have to design it right, and then Charlie's been involved, and Chantel's been involved. There's so many people who've really been active in helping us understand that we need to put some serious programming behind it, because without the programming and without the, WeWork talks about all the time, density is energy, and so we need to have an environment that has a vibrant, energetic environment that's surrounded by density, and just building a facility isn't going to do that. So there's a lot of math and science that's got to go behind it.
And every time you say the word serendipitous collisions, you have to pay Charlie dollars.
Yeah,
It's a trademark. He does have a trademark. But he's exactly right. That's the idea behind the tech center. Is that if you think about the companies that you have up there, and we've seen that just because we got involved in the Blockland effort, we just make connections. We did that the other day with a group from Tel Aviv, and they were like, "Oh wait, this person's doing this. I didn't even know them. We have a company that's doing this. All of a sudden, you put them together, and now you have some really, really exciting stuff going on." So that's what we hope to see in a deep way down the Cleveland.
and as a result of this, sorry, I'll just say, like, I got to know Charlie, invested with Charlie. I got to know you, invested with you. I got to know some of the other co-chairs, like Chantel, who had an amazing next-gen event 2 nights ago, in which we had the pleasure of speaking. I think she probably expected 100 or maybe 200 people. I mean, they were sold out at 400, not because we were speaking, probably because of everyone else. But I mean, these are the beginnings of building a deeper, bigger ecosystem. And I mean, you guys have been fighting the fight for how long have you been at it?
12 years.
12 years, right? And then you have a car dealer and a lawyer come in and pretend like they know all the answers. I mean, we don't. We're just here trying to help. So.
So as if this wasn't ambitious enough, Bernie, you decided to put a Cleveland Metropolitan School in this innovation hub.
Yeah.
Tell us about that.
Yeah, so one of the things I always like to do is kind of game things out. So I assume that John can close this deal, for God's sakes. Right, we build a tech center, that's a given in my mind already. So imagine you have 2,000 people working in this amazing place, whether it's corporate innovation centers, startups, companies like yours going, New York, we're doing New York, you've been there? Yeah. Right, you move back here where you're supposed to be, right, you put your company here, and you got all this amazing stuff going on. Then people want to live in an urban environment. But then all of a sudden, these young people start breeding, and they start having kids, right? And if they need to have a school that they would be comfortable sending their kids to, that's really about incredible technology, taught well, not because you have no choice of where you send your kids to, but the idea that I have any choice I want to send my kids to. I want to send them to a CMST school in downtown Cleveland, attached to the tech center, where people who work there send their kids there, and they also volunteer in the school. So you create literally this mentorship process from kindergarten right through 12th grade and beyond, right? So there's time for example, Charlie would look at a young John Pinney and go, definitely be a lawyer, I shouldn't be a technology, but I can give you a great referral to Marshall, right? Or vice versa, the other way, say, hey, listen, you don't need to go to college. Graduate from high school, I'll give you a degree certificate program, and you need to start coding right away because you're really talented at that. So the idea that you create this ecosystem, and it's all within walking distance, I think that's where the future where young people want in their environment.
Great. So we're almost out of time. Last question. While we have 250, 300 people who are investors, business people, entrepreneurs here, what would you like to see them do to be more engaged in this collaborative future, Cleveland?
I would just say the more people that get active, the better, and have a voice, speak out, help. We're all volunteers. Again, it's email us if you want to be involved, but also help make connections and advocate for Cleveland, advocate for the tech sector, and for building this ecosystem, and promote what we're trying to do here and get involved. And to me, that's the most important thing. This movement, it's got to get bigger before we make any real change.
A quick little list. So, number one, recognize that our elected officials are all stage actors and take the cues from the audience. So with that said, when you see our elected officials advocate for technology being a really important part of Cleveland's future, that's really important. Give you an exact example. If you see anybody who works for the city in any capacity whatsoever, just keep saying the word 5G, until you make you stop, okay? Because we have a shot at becoming the first 5G city in the Midwest. We need to make that happen. So that's number one. Number two is if you're involved with the economic development organizations, we can't keep at this, meaning not just John and I, but the co-chairs, because typically we have a lot of business people who are volunteering their time, and it's just not scalable for a long-term proposition to do this. So the way this has to happen is that this has to be incorporated into the mission of all of our active economic development organizations. Otherwise, we'll have done a lot over 24 months and then just die with exhaustion. So that's number two. And number three, if you know companies that you think should come to Cleveland, have an opportunity in Cleveland, advocate for it. We have one of our co-chairs, I can't talk about this publicly, but maybe that a table two chairs back here, that is an amazing person, Amy Brady, huge advocate in Cleveland. She's only been here 5 years. We're this close to getting a Fortune 100 company to open a major office here because of her sheer will. And they've said to me flat out, we would never have picked Cleveland because statistically we didn't make the cut, but because of the way you've just been at this over and over again, we've come to the conclusion that Cleveland's at an inflection point, and we're willing to make a leap early. And the way we make that inflection point really accelerate is all of you have networks, all of you have LinkedIn, you have Facebook, you have Instagram, you have Twitter. It's very important that as Clevelanders, we advocate for Cleveland in a strong and positive way. The idea that we think that Cleveland can't do things is got to be something that's in the past. I had this conversation with a person from Kris today. You know, a company I invested in, Bodo, unfortunately failed because of cash. He said, oh, that's a big story. I said, if you were a San Francisco reporter writing a story about every tech company that failed, you would have a full-time staff of 100 people. The fact that you're writing a story about a tech company that failed shows how far behind we are about building a technology culture in Cleveland. You know, if you invest in startups, you're going to have failures. And that happens. And the people who fail in startups are typically the ones that succeed in the next startup, or the one after that, or the one after that. And we have to wrap our head around that as a Midwesterners, because we tend to be, and I hate this term, fast followers, or risk averse. That's not the way the tech world works. I don't have to tell you, it's what you live every day. And all of you, it's what you live every day. We just have to make sure we spread that culture and thought process through here.
And I want to add one thing. Attend Solutions 2, the conference. We're doing it again. Please try to.
Ideas for speakers.
Yeah, ideas for speakers. Amy Brady was extraordinary. She brought in the CEO of Oracle, and then was unable to attend and actually ask the questions. But it was great. She actually got them to attend. So Attend Solutions 2. There's a lot of effort already underway. The first conference was incredible. So try to buy a ticket and support it, please.
We'll keep everyone in our group updated as additional information
That's great.
comes out. Just ask everyone here to join me in thanking John and Bernie. Appreciate it. And with that, we'll ask our next panel, the member panel, to come up and join us. We have 2 panels left, and then we will be announcing this year's North Coast Angel Fund Member of the Year.
Well, hello everyone. My name is Luketic, and I am the director of North Coast Angel Fund. 2018 was a big year for us as we added a number of impressive investors to our membership ranks, and joining me on the stage now is a small sampling of our Fund 3 membership, and we're going to have a conversation about 2018 and the year ahead. We're going to discuss things like our membership, we're going to discuss deal flow, we're going to discuss our processes, and we're going to discuss the ecosystem. So before we dive into that, I'd like to ask each of the panelists to please just give a brief introduction, starting with Charlie.
Okay. Hi, I'm Charlie Lougheed. Sort of new, not new to entrepreneurialism, been doing it for a long time. my last endeavor was a company called Explorus. For those that might not have heard of it, it was a company that was really sat at the intersection of big data and healthcare. And back in 2009, that was really exciting because a lot of things were changing. That company was acquired in 2015 by IBM, became IBM Watson Health's sort of big data backbone for its analytics. And it's still here today. They built an office here, and it's an exciting story. Since then, I'm on to actually startup 4 and 5. I can't believe we're doing these at the same time. Blood for Punishment. But one is a nonprofit, very proud of, called Unify Project. Unify Project stands at the intersection of big data and our economy, and in many ways is focused on figuring out how we create a more inclusive economy, because we think that's really the key to expansion, and how is that going to work. And the other one's an incubator, or a company we're incubating with some other organizations here in the audience. That's an exciting play on blockchain and digital proof, and using digital proof to dramatically improve the way that business is done and reduce a lot of cost in areas like healthcare, financial services, and other places.
My name is Michal Soclof. I'm a principal in Matrix Equities. We focus on technology and growth-based investments both here and abroad. I'm also a member of Fund 3 and on the executive committee for North Coast. My background is of software development and computer science and technology and strategy, with a background in startups and large corporations and development and research organizations.
My name is Charles Stack, and I'm with FlashStarts Accelerator. And first, I just want to say that apparently we only invest in companies where the CEOs talk really fast, because both OnShift and Remesh are in the FlashStarts portfolio, and God, you guys talk fast. So that's a cue. Well, in fact, I want to observe that 3 of the top 6 or so companies that Todd highlighted were from FlashStarts, and OnShift is the 4th that's already exited. So the system in northeastern Ohio, where FlashStarts brings companies early stage pre-seed investment, we're as far upstream really as you can get, and then follows through with investments from North Coast and Jumpstart and other investors in the region. That system is working, and it's way too small. Second thing I want to say is that Bernie and John, I think, understated to a dramatic fashion what I think is the magic that's happening with Blockland. I have never seen or heard of any voluntary organization that has got the dynamism and productivity that Blockland represents. It's an extraordinary achievement that's both a result of their efforts and some really remarkable timing. So with that, I'd like to add a list to what John and Bernie said about things you can do. The new FlashStarts Fund is focused on blockchain investments. And one of the things I need everybody to do is to think about the business that they're in. And if that business has any interest in exploring blockchain as a solution, we're putting together an ambassadors program. So if you want to go to the FlashStarts site and sign up as an ambassador and indicate where your interests are in exploring blockchain as a potential solution for part of your business problems, we will find you a startup that can help you with that.
Good evening, I'm Eddie Taylor, owner of Taylor Oswald, an organization I created about 8 years ago now with Oswald Companies, one of this area's largest regional risk management firms. And started this venture with Oswald after having been in the warehouse and distribution business and risk management in times past. One of the other principal reasons I'm here is because I'm the current chairman of an organization in town called the President's Council, who African American business owners wellness thing together called the President's Council. We'll talk a bit more about it in just a moment, but those are the 2 principal reasons.
Thank you, everyone. We'll start down here with Charlie Lougheed. So Charlie, as everyone heard, you have both the perspective of a founder as well as the perspective of an active angel investor. And I'm hoping you can share from your point of view what the key value is that early stage angels, people like our members, can deliver?
Yeah, it's interesting, being the jockey and the horse at the same time, right? And the owner, I should say, and sometimes I guess the horse. It's interesting because you get these perspectives, right? We did it with even this company we started because we funded Explorers that way, with us doing the first round. But I tell you that experience, and many of us have this, of being able to impart that wisdom about things that to take seriously and some things not to take seriously is really important. Doing a startup's really hard. It's really stressful, and it's, sometimes you just need to understand what really matters and what not to sweat. One of the things I think is really important is the ability to help work with a entrepreneur on things that they may not be thinking about as top business. Most times people start an organization, start a company, and it's because of a great idea. They're brilliant at something, and you have all the other things you need to worry about as it relates to raising money. And that includes things like having a process and benchmarks around basic things like your cap table, how you want your cap table to evolve over time. What your financials should look like. What are the benchmarks relative to spend, and what ratios should you be seeing early in the business? What's going to look good or not look good as you go to raise your further rounds of seed funding and then Series A. If you've never done it before, a lot of these things just aren't taught in textbooks, right? And so it's really important to be able to support the entrepreneurs that you work with. Many of this, we do a lot of that coaching, and we see it has a pretty big impact. So understanding these formulas, being able to impart these formulas, we think are really important. And I think the last one, which is kind of an obvious one beyond money, is networking. And it goes beyond just making a warm introduction. It's really making sure you follow up, especially with the customer base in Cleveland, right? They have a lot of vendors coming at them. And so if you're representing an entrepreneurial organization and you make a intro, make sure they're following up on it, right? Stay on top of it. That's going to be really important because, again, sometimes it's just being top of mind and making sure that organizations you're helping support are there.
Thanks, Charlie. So we'll move on to the other Charlie on our panel. So
Not Charles.
Charles. Apologies. So Charles, as we heard, you have been a fantastic deal flow partner of North Coast Angel Fund through Flash Starts and Start Mart. And I'm curious, as you look back at 2018, as you look at the year ahead, what trends are you seeing related to deal flow?
Well, unfortunately, it's negative. Flash Starts has been around for 5 years, and each year both the number and quality of deals that we've been able to look at has actually gone down. Last year, we brought in 2 companies from overseas, one from Bangalore, India, and one from Kiev in Ukraine, which was great, and 4 companies from Akron, Canton, and I think only 3 from Northeastern, from Cleveland. I don't know how to explain it, but we need to both cultivate and recruit way more startups because there's lots of opportunity. So it's gone in the wrong direction right now.
And what do you think the people in the room, our members, how can they be active in helping strengthen this deal flow pipeline?
That was my pitch in the first 30 seconds during the introduction. Lots of organizations throughout the world offer funding, pre-seed funding. It's no longer unique. There are a lot of accelerators everywhere, all doing what Flash Starts does, offering $50,000. But if I can go out there in the global market and say, I'll not just invest in your company, but I will give you customers that will provide valuable feedback, and maybe a beta customer, they'll flock here. And the great thing about Blockland is it is engaging the entire community. So we're hoping as a region to leverage that engagement to say, please offer yourself up as an innovator. And say, yeah, I'll try new stuff, either personally in a consumer application or in your business with a new technology application. If you could do that, we'll get companies both to get created here, to come here, and maybe at the end of the day, most importantly, to stay here because their customers are here.
shift over to process. So, Michal, to say you have been a key member of our investment screening committee and our due diligence teams feels like a massive understatement. I'm hoping you can share maybe some key learnings from your perspective that we've had over the last year with those groups, or new processes that we have implemented as a result of our brainstorming and looking to improve.
So I'm going to put a little more of a positive spin than Charlie, and that's because some of the best companies we've seen coming through the screening committee have been your companies that are coming through Flash Starts, and Andrew is among them. We've had over the past year a more formalized process. We've been working on documenting, we've been working on taking the screening committee and then into due diligence in a way that enables us to really have a proper follow-through. So it gives us the opportunity to ask questions, to normalize and standardize the type of questions that we ask, because we see companies from across the disciplines. And we need to be able to evaluate them in and of themselves, but also in comparison to the other companies. So for example, we have a fund, and we are, on behalf of the members, making decisions of which companies make it through screening into due diligence, and then which ones actually make it through diligence to investments. So we want to be able to do that in a very thoughtful manner, both qualitative and quantitative. And we've been working very hard in that area. I think the other aspect that I've really just enjoyed and also grown from this process is the members that are working with us in these teams. So over the past few months, it's been a core team of members, many of whom are here, that are part of the screening committee and then go into the due diligence committees, which then really get to know the companies. And because we work together a lot, we get to know each other's roles. So we don't repeat the same kind of questions. We know who's going to cover one topic. So I tend to cover artificial intelligence and machine learning. People know I'll cover that and let me handle it, or natural language, as I do with Andrew. Anurag tends to do pricing models, marketing. Alan, very focused on product market fit. Rex, I think I saw him here. He does a lot of the market. Jen handles a lot of the marketing as well. And so we've fallen in a very positive way into roles of expertise. And I think the other very positive aspect has been the corporate partners that we've had, because they have enabled us to have representatives on these teams that work in the corporate world, meaning they are the customer. So, and we see many great ideas, but a great idea to a successful company is a long path. Like you saw with OnShift, the path Mish is on. One of the main aspects and goals to make it successful is you need a market. You need a company willing to step up and pay you money for your product. And we've been starting to utilize the corporate representatives to say, we think this is a great idea. Would you put money in your budget to actually purchase this product? And that's been a very interesting conversation. And I think one that's going to continue to enhance the role of the corporate partnerships as we move forward.
Yeah, just to pile on, I can't tell you how important that is. I'll just say it is so incredibly important. I mean, Explorers would not have made it had we not had Cleveland Clinic and University Hospitals and Metro take us under their wing and say, for guys that knew nothing about healthcare, right? Here's what we need. Here are the problems we have. Here's how, help us solve it, right? And that is so absolutely critical. And for those large corporations in the room, I'll just tell you, the first thing you got to do before you invite any vendor in from out of town, look local first. Look hard local. Give them a shot, right? That is so absolutely important, because that's the one thing that can really differentiate this region. It's watching out for our own. We need a more inclusive economy.
So, Eddie, you sit on the board of Jumpstart. Formerly, you sit on the board of the Burton B. Morgan Foundation. As we heard, part of the President's Council, and the list goes on and on. You are clearly an active member of this ecosystem. So let's talk about the ecosystem. We heard, some comments from the prior chat, and as you just generally think about that discussion, and you think about specifically how we can activate angels to strengthen the ecosystem, curious your thoughts.
John and Bernie are both right? We've got to build a deeper, bigger ecosystem, and they both have solutions to get there. as a board member of the Berkeley Morgan Foundation, of course, it's a foundation. Todd is right. It's philanthropy is different, of course, than building these businesses for growth and profits. But there is an intersection, of course, between philanthropy and business development. The millions of dollars a year that Berkeley Morgan Foundation plows into this ecosystem are used for good. Right? Our mission, part of our mission, is to champion this entrepreneurial spirit. We do it in a few different ways, building young entrepreneurs, those who are in high school and perhaps even younger, the collegiate space we occupy as well. Then there's the adult space. So the money that's plowed into this system by Berkeley Morgan Foundation helps build this bigger, deeper entrepreneurial ecosystem. We're proud of that work, but there are still gaps. And we're proud to, of course, align with North Coast because one of the things we're doing is creating better educational processes. The Angel Education Series that Berkeley Morgan Foundation supports through the North Coast, we think goes a long way towards helping develop that ecosystem. The President's Council is a little different. We have a dozen or so of these businesses that are, as I mentioned, African American owned, from what is the largest African American owned business in the state of Ohio, one of the largest in the country, to those that are just $5 million or so in revenue. But one of the things we've discovered is that it's important that we are in these discussions, in the conversations. How do you build this bigger, deeper ecosystem? You find ways to make it as inclusive as possible. So I give, once again, John credit because he talked about this effort that's happening around spaces. The conversations have always included folks who are of color in that conversation. The discussions always involve how do we make this process work for the entirety of our community. Yes, we all want to find ways to build and lift, but it's important to build and lift in a way that everyone is included in the conversation. That's part of the President's Council role. So the ecosystem continues to grow. We'll probably be a part of it. What we've also done is know that it can't just be about the dozen or so entrepreneurs or members. We've created a foundation as a result of our work. We've created a chamber of commerce as a result of our work. So there are hundreds now of other entrepreneurs of color who are growing their businesses and need access to capital, who are continuing to fuel and feed this system. And then, of course, we couldn't do any of this without the desire and need to give back. So in that foundation, we again teach young entrepreneurs how to be better at whatever it is their desires, what their desires may be.
Thank you. So we've talked a lot about corporate partnership and the need for that, and you have developed a very successful partnership with Oswald. Any quick thoughts, advice for our group of the angels, the entrepreneurs in the room about how best to engage?
Yeah, it was an interesting dynamic. I exited a company or two before I met the folks at Oswald. They knew I had history in the insurance space, so they wanted to create what they thought was a creative partnership because the industry had not supported prior to that point an organization of scale that had to be owned by an African American. So we thought long and hard about how to best do that, and because we're so creative, Taylor is my last name, we call it Taylor Oswald. But it has grown, but it's grown because they've been patient not only with the learning curve I had to go through to better understand how they work and how they operate, but also because we have found ways to deliver this promise not only locally, but in other parts of the country. So that patience has paid off for them. So what I would say is find creative, new, unique ways to deliver upon whatever promise you have to not only your customers, but to the growth of your organization. You can do that by looking at, I would say, sources that aren't necessarily traditional.
Thank you. Well, we have one more panel this evening, the CEO panel. So before I invite them up to the stage, I just hope you can all join me in thanking
If you're leaving, you're missing the best part when he's talking.
The bar is open, so that may be where a couple people are headed here.
I'm not saying it would be better with a drink. It'd be good either way.
Yes. Well, thank you again, everyone. This is going to be really interesting. everyone on the stage here is a CEO, two are CEOs of the North Coast companies, and we're going to try to better understand what our world looks like from their perspective. After that, we're going to announce our Member of the Year, so we hope everyone will stick around. We'll start with you, Charu. Do you mind just taking a moment and giving people the 30-second background so people know what you've done?
Yeah. Have a PhD in biomedical engineering from Case Western Reserve University. That's kind of how I ended up in Cleveland. Originally from India. The technology that I worked on. I guess I need to know how to turn this on. Originally from India, the technology that I worked on was a cardiovascular mapping system that I took from bench to bedside as part of Case, and it had commercial potential, so translated that technology out of the university, started the company out in Cleveland, had kids, kind of grew roots, and been here for 20 plus years. And since then I've started two other companies. One is a microfinance credit scoring company that's based in Washington, D.C. I'm on the board of. And then I'm running another company called Vital Exchange. That's a social network for patients.
Kris, Beck, the CEO of Performance. Performance is a software company really identified in the life insurance space. We provide policy management software for life insurance agents and financial advisors so that they can monitor the financial performance of life insurance policies across the lifetime of the asset. My background is in software. I've been in software for almost a couple of decades at this point. I worked for several software companies, and really, my skill set is around scaling and running software companies.
My name is Roth. I'm the CEO of Streamlink Software. Super excited to be here today. This is where I got my start. Began the process here, and prior to starting Streamlink, I went to the College of Worcester. Then I met my now wife, fell in love, stayed in Cleveland. You either fall in love with someone, your job, or the place. I fell in love with someone. The rest followed. Went to work in nonprofits for 15 years, and really, when we talk about what we're building here, I think building on the strengths of our region, we talked about building on the strengths of healthcare, building on the strengths of our business community, some of the leadership. One of the areas where we have a super strong core is in philanthropy, and was able to build on that strength, got educated, got to a good career path, and then started a company selling board management software, which is not what I do today, as Todd mentioned earlier. So really excited to be here, and thanks for letting me share this with you.
I'm Kavanaug. I'm the CEO of Navistone, and Todd describes a lot of what we do. We're really a retargeting platform where we allow businesses that have a lot of websites, or have a lot of web traffic rather, to send direct mail to people who have visited the site and left without transacting. Turns out doing that today is actually less expensive than things like pay-per-click advertising and responds at a much higher rate.
Terrific. Well, Charu, we'll start with you. You are a biomedical engineer, founder, CEO, angel investor. Having gone through all those experiences, how does that inform the decisions that you make as an angel? How do you look at things differently because of your entrepreneurial experience?
I think entrepreneurs like myself are uniquely qualified to be angels because we know what it takes to be in the trenches and how to, and then to some degree we can help the entrepreneurs that we want to invest in navigate that early time frame to understand the business, to understand what to prioritize and pivot and things like that. I do think that you've got battle scars that you can share. And I think that's the value added entrepreneur turned angel.
Adam, I mentioned earlier that we invested in a board of director portal, and now you're running an enterprise grant management company. What happened?
So we started off with a simple business, which was a board management business selling it to nonprofits. saw an opportunity to pursue a grants management side of that business to nonprofit organizations. And so we developed a product to sit along our board management product and selling it to nonprofits. But all of a sudden now we had a really complicated business. I remember walking out of a board meeting with Todd once, and he's like, given how much revenue you have, you guys are so complicated. And the reason was we had two products that we were trying to sell into two markets, and we were starting to realize that the markets that we wanted to sell into were not the same. That we weren't doing what Mark was doing with OnShift and just adding products to the same customer base and being able to grow that. So we had built a couple $1 million of revenue business around the board management product. It was actually doing okay, it was doing pretty well, but it wasn't having the acceleration that we were looking for. Where we saw the opportunity was in the grant space, and we started to look at what is it going to take to shift this business from an inside sales grants management business to a enterprise class system where price point is going from $10,000 to $20,000 a year to $2 million a year. How are we going to shift that business, and what's that going to look like, and can the same team do it? And what we realized was that it probably couldn't. And one of the most valuable things that an entrepreneur needs to be successful is time. Because otherwise you have to thread your opportunity into a time point where there's an exact need, where you have recognition as being a market leader at the exact right point in order to make that happen. The longer that window is, the more time that you have, the more higher level of success there is. And when you're dealing with enterprise class product and sales, you just need more time. And so selling BoardMax provided capital to help drive that, increase that timeline, increase our window for success. And so that sort of transformed the pivots. We went from simple to complex to simple, and got focused and got driven in and used the resources from one business to help drive the other. And that's really what I think has led to our current success.
So Kris, you've had something of a golden touch in that a number of the companies you've worked on have gotten bigger and been sold to large acquirers. What have you learned about driving to an exit, getting through an M&A process that we in earlier stage entrepreneurs should know?
I guess the first thing is that the exit is really the outcome. And that you spend some time on exit strategy, you shortlist who you think is going to buy you. But at the end of the day, so I've been a part of 3 exits. They all come really fast. You don't know when they're going to happen all the time. And I've never actually had one of the acquirers been on the shortlist of who we actually thought was going to buy us. So I think just in general, it's good to understand your exit opportunities, but to not really spend a lot of time thinking about it. Spend a lot of time thinking about, driving the enterprise value. Is the right team in place? Right? Are you able to execute on your sales and revenue goals, on a repeatable basis? And can you hit the trajectory that you really need to hit to have a great exit outcome? So I would say, focus on the business and driving the business, and the exits, are sort of an output of that.
Great. Larry, we talked a lot about angel investors engaging with CEOs to help open doors and make commercial connections. How has that worked from your perspective, either with us, your Cincinnati investors, or other early independent investors?
It's actually a big surprise to me, because I'm a serial entrepreneur. I've done several companies, exited a couple of them, and this is the first time I've actually had investors. I was not expecting that this was going to be a sort of side benefit of, or not even a side benefit, I would actually say an important benefit of working with investors who are engaged, who know what it is we do, and who can help us. We get probably 3 decent leads a month out of our investor group, and out of North Coast in particular, one of our largest, I think it is actually the largest people, our customers will often test us first. Hey, we want to try your product and see how it works. I think we had actually the largest single test happen this quarter out of a North Coast introduction. So one thing I would say to any entrepreneur is absolutely use your enterprise business, and I'll say in 10 seconds. So anyone, if you know anyone who has a website that has about 100,000 visitors or more per month, if it's a considered product, product that someone's going to think about, and the company is engaged in digital advertising, I'd love to talk to them.
Excellent. So, Kris, in your three endeavors, the investors have typically been private equity funds, and oftentimes the dollars have been from different parts of the country. Are there things you wish our investor base here in Northeast Ohio and Ohio better understood about your world?
Yeah, I think, we have a lot of, I think, private equity here, right, in the area. I think the difference is it's less software, less tech. And I think a couple of things. One is the business models of underlying tech, and there's various business models that exist within tech. Those are completely different than a lot of traditional businesses that we have grown up around in this community. And it's important that we, as investors, and I invest as well, we are very educated about the business models that exist, and to make sure that through the cycle of the company and the growth of the company, we understand what's appropriate for different stages, right? So what's appropriate in pre-seed and seed and in venture is different than private equity. And so as investors, I think just one, having an awareness around that, and two, just spending some time being thoughtful about that as you're making investments. And the other thing I love to see is the amount of programming that we're finally starting to do in the region, because I think that's something that has lacked, I think, in the last sort of 5 years here. And I see a lot of that, in Atlanta and Dallas, and they're not even particularly big markets like San Francisco and Boston are, but that programming exists and is generally just more, there's more awareness around it. So I'd love to see us do that.
Adam, one of the byproducts of shifting from targeting $5,000 to $10,000 deals to seven-figure deals is that they take a lot longer. What have you learned? What would you share about what it takes to go after true large-scale enterprise clients?
So I think fundamentally, as we kind of went through this shift and this transformation, the board, if you go to your board and you say, we want to sell a $2 million, we're going to sell a $2 million piece of software subscription, they're really happy. If you go to your board and you're going to say, we want to sell a $2 million piece of software in a non-predictable, non-defined sales process, it starts to get a lot more anxious. And so part of it is the challenge, I think, is internal. So there's the internal challenge about getting alignment to what you're doing. And again, that goes back to sort of making sure you have the right window, the right amount of time to be successful. And the importance of that internal alignment can be very helpful because it can start to define for you what's important in an enterprise sales process. What's important in an enterprise sales process isn't necessarily how big your funnel is, or how many demos you did, or how many people you've given a price quote to. Those are things that when we were doing our inside sales business, those were things we cared about and were important. When we talk about an enterprise sales process, each deal almost has to stand on its own. Each deal becomes a set of things that have to be checked off in order for approval. And on any given deal, there may be 5 things, or there may be 25 things. And the reality is when you go into the deal, your board and you have to be comfortable that there may be 3 other things that you don't even know about when you walk in the door to do the deal. Because understanding a customer, especially like us, we sell to government. There's political pressures, multiple layers. It's a 5-dimensional sale. It's a consequential process. And so there is a lot to walk through, but you need the board to have confidence and appreciate that and support you in building that direction in order to get there. If they don't have that, they don't have the patience, it will never be successful. So they have to have belief and confidence and patience. Externally, it's a different set of criteria. Externally, from the customer's perspective, you obviously have to have value. And for us, we show our customers how we will create for them in a period of like 3 years, $500 million of value for their state. And that's why they're willing to spend $2-3 million a year to create $500 million of value. And so that's incredibly important. But that doesn't get you over the hump. What you also need to have is credibility. And a small company like Streamlink Software in Cleveland, Ohio, cannot sell to a state government a $2 to $3 million sale independent. And so we needed to have partnerships structured with like Microsoft, IBM, Accenture, that allow us to sell our product into those states. So you need to have credibility, you need to have value, and you need to have internal buy-in and set that structure up for success. And also understand that that sales process you'll have to create your own way to define and report that internally to make sure that you can stay on track with that.
Great. So Larry, Napstone has done 2 investment rounds. Couldn't be more different. One was led by local Cincinnati investors, had the Queen City Angels and CincyTech. North Coast participated, angel-led round. The next round was an institutional venture capital fund-led round from Northern California. How has that changed things? What has that felt like to have coastal institutional VCs on board and on the cap table?
Well, I'll start by saying it's not that we didn't want to have those other people in the first round, but the truth is the coast very rare to get a coastal to come inside. So we're very fortunate that Ohio had, frankly, enough great investors to allow us to get started. In terms of sort of the difference between coastal versus Ohio, very quickly I'd say the difference is sort of the networks that you're exposed to. Inside of Ohio, we have great connections. We've been able to take advantage of a lot of things that exist in Ohio because of those connections. But bringing on Bullpen Capital out of the Bay Area, the managing director, who's our contact, Paul Martino, had previously hired in another role the guy who's currently the head of marketing technology at Facebook. And I was brainstorming with him about the issue. He said, "Hey, let's call my friend Dave Jakubowski and we'll ask him." I'm like, "Sure, let's do that." And that's so I think it's more that you're able to tap. It's not that one. It's really just the more you can expand your networks, the more resources, the more ideas that you can bring into your business.
Great. So the final question, Charu. You've had angels, you've had venture capital funds, and you've had strategics on your cap table. What has it been like? How do you think about the different relationships between different kinds of investors, and how did that evolve as you went from a point of starting out with angel investment to selling to a large publicly traded company?
I love answering that question because that is a very common predicament that faces entrepreneurs, is that the first investors, the angels, your friends and family, that actually took a chance at you, the more rounds of investment you have, they will probably get screwed out of the deal. Just saying that. And the reason is because the follow-on investors don't really need to care about your early investors. The person that really needs to care about your early investors is the founding team, because they remember. And my philosophy is very simple. If you've seen the movie Cars, Disney Pixar, there's Tomater that says, if you want to know where you're going, you got to remember where you're from. So that's my philosophy, is those angels, those early investors that invested in you, I take that upon myself as the entrepreneur, the founder, to actually bring that legacy to make sure that I'm preserving their value and they're carried along towards the exit. So as an example, with Cardio Insight, we got to a situation where we needed to raise $20 million of venture capital to build out, get regulatory approval. Medical devices take a very long time to get to market. That's why I'm not doing that anymore. But we got to a situation where the term sheets we were getting, because we were just at pre-revenue, pre-commercialization, pre-FDA approval stage, were quite, I would say, detrimental to our early investors, our seed, Series A, Series B investors. And so we had to make a decision. And that decision would be either take the money, and I do very vividly recall a conversation where they said, "Charu, don't worry about it, fill up your options, don't worry about it." And I did have an angel that actually carried the day through the early investment stages. I had, Case, and we had Jumpstart, a lot of early investors. And at that moment, I did survey the landscape, and a strategic investment route, which is non-dilutive financing, which would tie us to an exit partner, potential exit partner that would actually invest to get a couple of milestones, and then we would fit into the portfolio, made a lot of sense. So we entered, 3 years before we were actually acquired into a relationship with Medtronic, that we hired an investment banker, we negotiated the deal, we renegotiated a term sheet. Upside is we met the milestones, which I was confident we'd get. We got acquired. Downside is we pre-negotiated the value of the deal without really knowing, what the price would be like at the end. But from a shareholder return perspective, I feel very confident that we maximized it. So that's kind of the equation. Now, in an ideal world, everything would be aligned. Companies should be built to be bought, not to be sold. So if everything was aligned, shareholder value maximization, and your financing the endpoint and your acquisition, everything would be aligned. So when we see that conflict, I do take it upon the entrepreneurs to make sure that you bring along those people that actually, for me, that loyalty is extremely important value, and that's a value that I foster in my teams as well.
Terrific. Well, thank you. This has been a great conversation. We have one thing left to do, which is to award our Angel of the Year award. So please join me in thanking the panel. And I'd like to present the award.